Have you recently graduated from a coding bootcamp or potentially from a university and still don't feel ready for the real world of programming? Well, today we're bringing on one of our friends for our first guest, Joel Jacobson, to talk about that exact feeling and how we're dealing with it. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we have our first guest of all time here on Coding Imposters, Joel Jacobson. It is Jacobson, right? Yes, I got it right.
Jacobson. You got it right.
How's it going, Joel?
Great, man.
Welcome to the episode. We're glad to have you for our first guest. I hope you feel very honored.
I am very honored. Feel highly esteemed.
We had about 3 people reach out that want to be on it, and we chose you first.
Wow.
And trust me, it wasn't just because you sent me the message first.
All right. That's a
and
lot of
I had all the say in it too as well.
Oh man. All right. Well, I guess just like graduation, it's first one to present, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if anything goes wrong, it's our fault, not the guest's fault. We'll take all the blame, so don't you worry about it. But thank you for joining us, Joel. For those that don't know you, you can give a quick intro, but just for those who are listening, I had Joel in my last class of the Coding Bootcamp because I only took 1. I think, Joel, you took 2, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but we did our projects in algos class is what it's called, so that's where we got to know each other. I think it's almost like 2 months of knowing each other now.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So why don't you just give us a little bit of your background? Love to hear, when did your coding interest start? How did that all begin?
Yeah. So my coding interest actually started in 5th or 6th grade. I checked a book out from the library and taught myself basic programming on an old Apple IIe. And then
An Apple IIe?
An Apple IIe, yeah.
How
orange
long
and
ago
black
was
monitor.
this, Joel?
This was in the 80s.
Okay.
Late 80s.
Joel, you don't look like a day over 30.
Oh, I appreciate that. Have you seen my hairline? Come on now.
I thought that was intentional. You
Oh,
just
it's
look
halfway.
Good ball,
It's halfway intentional. I think it was about the 6th grade age that I also made a commitment that when I started going bald, I was going to take it all off because I wasn't.
For it. Smart.
I wasn't going to grow a skullet. So, so here we are. And when I'm stressed, my beard turns gray. So obviously, we're doing
Like
okay.
a chameleon, it just will like randomly jump back and forth.
Yeah, I'm like Rogue, but not permanently, and I don't kill people when I touch them. So
Yeah,
it's
that's kind of cool.
Awesome. So you're self-teaching yourself decades ago.
Yeah. And then in high school, graphing calculators came out, and so I programmed my graphing calculator to do, SOHCAHTOA and all those things for me, so I could get done with my tests sooner. And then somehow I had the notion that I wasn't good enough at math to be a good computer programmer, and so I kind of bailed on it, and went to school for creative writing. And became an English teacher.
Interesting.
And,
where did that come from? Can I ask? Is that your own feeling that you weren't good enough, or were there other people telling you, you got to get into high math to be into computer science and all that stuff?
Yeah. Here's how ridiculous it is. I got a C in pre-calc in high school, and so I thought I wasn't very good at it.
Oof.
And then, well, math is also in my DNA. My mom was an AP Calc teacher for 20 years, and my dad had a PhD in geophysics.
Oh, wow.
So when the creative writer shows up, it's like, where does this guy come from? So I actually went up through Calc 2 in college, and I got a B in Calc 2, and I thought, well, I'm barely pulling a B. I can't do any more math. Like, no, peace out. And looking back on it, that was really foolish. It turns out the school I worked at, the AP Calc teacher barely pulled a B in Calc 2. It's one of the hardest math classes outside of differential equations that you can take, I guess. So anyways, I settled on English. And I think part of it was in high school, I had an English teacher that really validated my learning. And my math teacher was probably my junior and senior in high school, one of the worst human beings on the planet. So I think that spoke into it as well. It's just the quality of person speaking into my life. So I got into
that's totally true.
Yeah, the power, the influence of adults in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So after college, I got a degree in creative writing because I was going to be a writer, and so to make up or to wait until I was able to make money doing that, I had a choice of either getting into youth ministry or teaching. And at the time, teaching taught more, and paid more. So that's saying something.
Paid
so
more, yeah, not
paid more than
surprising.
youth ministry. So
I know that. I know that feeling.
yeah, right. So I got into teaching, and 20 years later, here I am. But along the way, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I started goofing around with Google Apps Script. It's basically JavaScript, part of the Google Apps suite. And I built some apps to help make my workflow more efficient. Like as a teacher, I loved Socratic seminars and leading these class discussions. But the format that I settled on took a long time to get the kids' feedback. So I created an add-on to a Google Sheet where there's 8 different types of comments that kids could get credit for. And I would click the type of comment that it was, and that's all I would do. And then at the end, I would click calculate, and I figured out an algorithm so it would calculate the grade that I would calculate based on the combination of comments, and it would email their results to them automatically. And calculate the grade. So I could just hit send results. It emailed them, and I could put the grades in the grade book, and it worked. It's totally slow.
Wait. So you didn't want to, you were like, oh, I can't code. I'm not good at math. You become a teacher, and then you create this really complicated app that I can't even repeat back to you.
It created class discussions for me, basically, is what it did. Yeah.
That's
Ironic, right?
awesome.
Yeah, talk about the power of negative self-talk.
Say, it sounds like you had a lot of self-teaching knowledge anyway. So I'm kind of curious what made you want to sign up for a boot camp, because that was something that I struggled with as well. I started, using YouTube, other resources to start teaching myself for a few months until I saw Skylar sign up, and I was like, okay, maybe I do need something like that. What was it for you? Was it I just need the certificate, or do you feel like you're hitting roadblocks in your self-teaching?
Yeah, so fast forward from that app until 2021, and our school needed an app to manage study hall for all the kids, and there's about 1,200 kids in our school. So I used Google Apps Scripts again, and they wouldn't buy a database. That was the problem. So I built an app where kids could sign up for study hall, teachers could take attendance, and the administrators could find where the kids were. And we went from having 300 unaccounted for students at the end of the day to about 10. So highly effective app. So the fact that I pulled that off made me think, like, this is super rad. Solving these problems was way more interesting than the problems of public education that they're facing post-COVID. And so that kind of got the ball rolling. And then about a year ago, I had a friend mention boot camps to me and how they help place people in jobs and all that stuff. So I'm like, nah, that's not for me. I'm not good enough to do that. But then I started poking around and doing there's some other boot camps that have some preliminary exercises that you could take. And I was just rocking those out. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can do that. And so I started looking for a variety of boot camps and found the one that I ended up being in. And about a month in, I said, yeah, I really want to do this instead of teaching. So I quit my job.
Nice.
So now I'm unemployed, looking for a job. Pressure's on for that 3 to 6 month time frame. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Dang.
it's an interesting conversation, because Skylar and I were just talking about this beforehand, and this scale of, do I take a job I can get for now as like a comfort job that's not in coding so that I can have more time to stretch out, take it easier, or is it better to have that anxiety that like I need to find a job in coding, I can spend all my time coding? What has that balance been like for you?
Yeah, so in 6 months, we're completely out of money. I mean, even with unemployment checks coming in 6 months, savings is all spent. So probably December or January, if I haven't found, the in the industry job, I'm just going to get a job somehow, somewhere. So I've got a long runway, but so right now the balance is all or nothing. We'll see what's going on in a few months, and I may have to rebalance.
You come back on and you can let us know where you're at. For sure.
Luke will know. Luke will know what happens.
Well, it's totally like kind of what we were just talking about, a minute ago, of just like I took the route of I'm trying to get a job or just work right now to have money so I can live, and then Luke is doing he's just free rolling until he finds something, and then you're doing the same thing. It's fascinating to kind of see the different paths or decisions that people are making right out of the same exact schooling.
Yeah, and part of mine is, I mean, it's a huge leap of faith. As I took my kids back to school, my kids go to school where I used to work, and as I had that whole process at the beginning of the school year of, should I just kept my job until something came up? Should I have? And then I go to back to school night and see all my friends and talk to them about all the stuff that's going on, and it's like, it was such the right decision to leave. My health is better than it's been in 20 years. I don't have to deal with the stresses or the institutional narratives that are going on there. I can start a new life in a lot of ways. So kind of restart and reboot. So it's a leap of faith, and we'll see how it works out.
I'm curious to go back to something you said earlier as well. You were saying the boot camp wasn't even for me. Like you were like, I'm not good enough for that to even start the boot camp, which I find funny because obviously, you know, you and I met in our final class, and I would say you were definitely one of the top students. Both your projects were killer. You're doing things I was like, you're installing sockets and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I haven't even touched that yet. So like Joel's, you know, kicking butt here. So I'm curious to hear from you and Skylar too. Like, what was your mentality going into boot camp, and why was it this way of like, I don't even think I'm good enough to go to boot camp itself?
Are you familiar with the Enneagram? Have you heard of the Enneagram?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no.
My wife tells me about it all the time.
Okay.
Well, and I was in youth ministry, so like everyone in ministry was like, "Oh, the Enneagram, it's the next thing."
Yeah. So I'm also an Enneagram coach, but my Enneagram work has led me. I won't go on and on about it. I'll just say this: my Enneagram work has led me to understand.
You can go on and on it. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not like CrossFit or veganism. You know, it's fine.
Or veganism. Okay.
That's the joke. You know, like those are two things. Like you can't get a person to shut up about CrossFit or being vegan. You know.
Well, we'll see if Enneagram is added. Go ahead, Joel.
No, I will not overstay my welcome. So I'm an Enneagram 6, which means that I value security, and I also have learned to trust other people's guts over my own gut as a way to survive the cruel world that we're trying to live in. And so in the last 5 years, I've just started learning to that my gut is actually trustworthy, and I don't need to. Community is important, but I can trust my gut over, or at least equal to, what other people are saying. And so there's that natural ability to not trust myself that leads to that I'm not good enough. And what you see in the boot camp is, I don't know if it's compensating or overcompensating for that I need to prove. I don't even have the sense that I need to prove to anybody else. But man, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to take this. I'm going to learn more than other people. I'm going to make better projects. And I think I want my instructor to be proud of me. I think that's a big thing as well. Which turns into a problem when you have a train wreck of an instructor, but outside of that, there was this huge drive to be the best, and not necessarily for approval or to win, but if I'm the best in that group, then maybe I am good enough. And then we graduate boot camp, and I realized it only got me halfway there. So there's a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I definitely want to hit on that, but I just want to thank you for your honesty. I think that's really good and helpful because it's definitely relatable. Funny enough, Skylar and I are both Enneagram 9s, which if you don't know about Enneagram, I'm now the one talking about Enneagram.
Yeah,
you know, it's like 3, 6, and 9. We all triangulate, and so there's lots of commonalities there. And I definitely relate to that experience of like, it's not like I have this like pride thing of like I need to like show everyone else they suck and I'm so good. Look at me. It's like, no, I actually don't want any of the attention on me, but like I need to prove it to myself, and those similar lines that you're talking about there. And Skylar, I'm interested to hear from you. Like going into boot camp, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? Because I don't think we've talked much about that.
No, we haven't. Yeah, I realize like when I'm learning something or I'm doing something, I always do better when I have pressure on me. I always do better when there's something that's pushing me or making me learn the thing that I want to learn. Even if I'm super self-motivated, I have to have a reason why I need to get something done. So I just built a gaming PC, and I got rid of my other PC that I had before I started building it, because I knew that if I bought all the parts and I waited, I wouldn't actually build the PC until the other thing was gone and I needed a computer, right?
So if you screw up, then you just have nothing.
Then you have nothing. Well, and then it's more of a perfectionism thing, right? Because I have to do it so well that it will work, and I can be confident in that. In the same sense with like the coding bootcamp, as I was realizing, I can learn code on my own, and I can do this on my own, but I know that I would excel faster if I have someone pushing me, and would have a group of people that would help push me even further. And I think that's the core of it, right? And then the other thing is just I was really freaking bored and I wanted to do something. So like you just sit there like, editing audio all day, and I need to talk to someone. I need to build something. I need to do something. So that's why I was pushing myself towards that. Not nearly as in depth and deep as Joel, but we all can't be as cool as you, so it's all good.
Well, sure you can't, because I'm not that cool. But that's really similar. That's really similar for me as well. I taught myself basic JavaScript, and things like reduce functions and map functions were super hard. And I feel like I reached a limit at the time for what I could teach myself. And having the structure of the bootcamp, like even doing stuff through freecodecamp.org or whatever, they have a ton of
Right.
They have a ton of things, and sometimes I'm like, I could have saved a ton of money by just doing those. But the interactions with the instructors and the community that came out of, like our Discord channel, this community that came out of that, I could have maybe stumbled upon it, but those are two interactions that in some ways revolutionized my learning. Like there was a drive and an ability, having someone just explain something or someone talk to me about my code. It's like, that's why that works. And there are so many moments that I don't think I would have had on my own, at least within this lifetime. I'd be 80 by the time I learned what I learned in boot camp if I were on my own.
Right. Or even just, I feel like I've gotten so much better because of helping people with their code, like seeing their errors and being able to recognize. I totally agree with you. If you're not going to connect with other people in the boot camp and at least try to make some kind of network, then I think you're missing out on 60-70% of the value of boot camp. I know, Skylar, you didn't as much as I did or Joel did, so I don't know if you would agree with that, but I think for me that was a huge piece.
Yeah, I would say a little bit. I enjoyed watching the discussions going to take place and seeing other people and how they approached things. Like Luke said, I'm a 9 in the Enneagram.
You can't use that excuse. I'm a 9 too.
You just said we both were, so I'm just saying, yeah.
Okay. I thought you were going to use an excuse for not networking.
No, well, a little bit. I am more reserved in that field, and I like self-learning, and I like having the tools and the things that will propel me. So, yeah, it was interesting to kind of watch when you and I were both in boot camp at different times, so never actually had the same classes. But Luke would be like, "Oh, I'm doing a study hall or whatever with my own Discord group," and I'd be like, I might go jump onto the dojo hall. I don't know. We'll see. But it's one of the things with the boot camp that I love, to kind of switch gears a little bit, is the ability to work at your own pace and learn in the way that you learn, right? There are people who need that Discord server environment where they're constantly asking questions and they're constantly on voice chats and they never leave voice chat basically. And there are some people who don't do it at all, who just need to be there for the classes and then do on their own self-teaching.
Yeah. I'm curious to go back to what you were saying earlier, Joel, of boot camp is halfway there. And I saw you say that in the Discord, and I thought that was genius because we were talking about, I think on episode 1, maybe it was episode 2, of this narrative of once you hit and graduate coding bootcamp, you're good. You're golden. You're going to get that job. It's going to be easy. You're already there. And really the reality is now post-graduation, we're like, oh, that narrative isn't really true. And I don't know if you were saying that bootcamp is 50% in that same similar lines, or what did you mean by that? I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so my perception or perspective going into boot camp was I'll have professional grade skills. And our P&A instructor, Projects and Algos instructor, helped me see that the boot camp really does teach us how to learn, maybe even learn better on our own. So that's a perspective shift over the course of the boot camp. So by only being halfway there, sorry, I'm stumbling. It rained here, and the most amazing rainbow ever just came up outside of the window. And it's I never see rainbows from my house. And it's like the pot of gold is just at the bottom of my street right now. And it's like, whoa.
I mean, if you don't have a job and you need to go find that gold, you can run. We can wait.
So we were driving home from school one day, and I thought we were going to drive into the end of the rainbow the way we were driving. And I'm like, this is amazing. I've never actually driven into a rainbow.
Man.
And it kept moving. So the pot of gold is up.
Don't you hate that? I hate science.
Yeah.
Science sucks.
Not computer science.
Next time. Next rainbow.
Anyways, halfway there. I think what I was expecting was to be fully hireable, and a combination of the curriculum that we were exposed to and my own practice. I wasn't, and maybe I'm still not ready in terms of algorithms and the coding assessments that we need to get past the initial parts of the application process. And so I applied for a job that was for bootcamp graduates. It was for people who came to coding alternatively outside of a bachelor's degree. And it was a job for Java, and I didn't even do Java, but I thought, hey, why not? Well, my resume made it past the resume readers, and they invited me to do a coding assessment.
Nice.
And I had 60 minutes to do 2 questions. And I was super excited, and I opened it up, and I read the problem, and I didn't even know what the problem was asking. And this was in the middle of July. So we're right in the middle of projects and algos when this is going on. And I'm like, what?
And so you just copy-pasted it into ChatGPT, and it did it for you, right?
Well, I wanted to see what would happen. And this one, you click off the tab, and a warning comes up that says, the company is watching.
Really?
You have clicked away.
That's funny. I've not experienced that yet.
That you're being monitored. And so it took me 45 minutes to do the first. Yeah, right. And who knows? They may not actually be watching, but who knows? And I also had to code it in Python, and I hadn't worked in Python in a month and a half. So I couldn't do JavaScript. So I was a little slow. And so I was just trying to Google things to figure out, how do you do this in Python? So I should have studied a little bit more. But I did get one of the 2 questions right, and it passed all the tests, and I was super happy about that. And the second one, I had just started to figure out what it was asking before I ran out of time. So I didn't get invited back to any more interviews for that one. And then probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was invited to another coding assessment, and this one had 4 questions in 70 minutes. And the first question took me like 6 minutes, and I was so excited. I'm like, yes, this is going to be awesome. The second question took me about 15. I'm like, oh, this is good. We're perfect. And the third question was like the first one in my previous assessment. It took me a while to figure it out. And I got it to pass like 1 or 2 tests, but no more. So that's a really long-winded way of saying that I have work to do on algorithms. Whether the jobs will need me to be able to accomplish that on a daily basis or not, I don't know. But to get my lovely face in front of an interviewer, I need to be able to win those coding challenges. So that's algorithms. That's a big one.
So I'm curious, what are our perspectives if we go along with this boot camp? Is we're halfway there. And maybe for each person, it's a little bit of a different percentage, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's more the analogy, metaphor, whatever you want to call it. Do we now look back and think, okay, now that we have this perspective, I'm very thankful the boot camp got me halfway there, and now I know where to go from here? Or are you guys in this spot of like, man, it sucks that boot camp only got me halfway there. I'm kind of upset or regret it, or I don't know. Like, do those thoughts and feelings come into play for you guys at all?
Yeah, definitely they do.
Easy answer.
You spend all this money, you spend all this time, and then they spit you out, and they're like, oh, by the way, this is actually gonna be a lot harder than we made it seem like when you first were in the school. And you're like, oh, thanks. That would have been awesome to know, because I would have worked harder. I would have done something different. I would have, but you didn't tell me anything. You just were like, oh yeah, our success rate's like 98%. Everyone gets jobs at Apple, at Microsoft, at wherever else, and they're like, it's so great. The lowest salary I've ever seen out of this boot camp is $170,000 a year.
What? Who
And
said
now
that?
it's like
I didn't hear that one.
the CSM,
Okay.
Wow.
and it's like, and then you come out, and literally everybody I know who's graduated, who I've talked to, hasn't gotten a job yet, and you're like, oh, this is a lot harder than they were telling you, and that's. Like, whatever. I'm glad with the skills and things that I've learned. I'm glad that I know, like, I can look at other languages besides what I have my certificate in and know what it's doing because of what they were able to teach and the fundamentals that they went through that I wasn't able to find on Google or those free academy sites, right? Those are things that I am happy I learned. Am I happy I spent $20,000 on it? Not really.
Did you tip them?
Yeah, I think
20?
it was like 18,000 or something for 2 stacks.
And you dropped a class though, so it was definitely wasn't that much. But
I forget. I think it's 16 to 18. It's up there.
To give them credit though, they do talk about like in the boot camp, and I don't know, maybe doing it like a month or two later than you was different because they're going through a lot of changes.
That's true. They were.
So they had a programming basics class when we started. I don't think they had one for you, Skylar. They had like a different pre-assessment stuff.
Oh, I didn't have to.
So they did talk about like, yeah, you need to be doing algos, stuff like this. But when you're in the midst of a boot camp, it's so accelerated. Even though it's a part-time program, I mean, most people are spending still like 30, 40 hours. Some people are working on top of that. Like, you're just spent. You don't have time, really, for the most part, for most people at least, to go do algos, do all these other things that they tell you need to do. It's not super realistic that you're going to come out doing all the assignments, doing all the work, and then also on top of that doing your own work times 2 to make sure you're 100% ready when you graduate. I mean, that's hard to do.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. I had buyer's remorse because there was another boot camp that I was considering with one of our local universities where I got my master's, and I was really contemplating that. It was a little bit cheaper. I got a discount because I'd already been to school there, but it was only JavaScript, and I really wanted to learn Python, and so I've wondered several times, like, should I have done? I would have learned more about MERN and JavaScript and PWAs and deploying. I would have learned more if I did that. Should I have done something else? And somehow I was trying to do a LinkedIn search like they taught us in career services. To connect with people, and everything I typed in was giving me connections from that boot camp, and they're in the exact same boat we are, doing the exact same thing we are, trying to get a job.
Yeah.
So it's more, I sense, it's more the environment right now. What's the word I'm looking for?
The market.
Yeah, good word, Luke. Way to go. Yes. It's a tough market. That's probably close to flooded right now with people who want entry-level development jobs. So that got rid of, we're all, in a lot of ways, we're all in the same boat. Like, it'll be fine.
Maybe.
Fingers crossed. Well, with that, Joel, I'm curious if you've had any thoughts or strategy moving forward, what you're doing. Skylar and I have talked about, okay, the job hunt hasn't been going that well. Let's do some freelance stuff together. Have you started thinking down that road? Are you still just in the job hunt grindstone? Are you trying to focus more on networking? Just, do you have an automated bot that goes through all the easy apply on LinkedIn's? Like, what has it been like for you? And has your strategy changed up since then as well?
Yeah, I'm shifting strategy right now because it's easy for me to get stuck in the job application rabbit hole of I'll just keep applying for jobs and just blitz them out there. And I keep hearing that it's going to be about networking more than it's going to be about jobs. Because part of my challenge is convincing people, how can an English teacher be a developer? Like those two don't go hand in hand. So my resume, I had an experience this week like you, Luke. I sent in an application, and an hour later I had an email saying that they carefully considered my application and wouldn't be moving forward.
Isn't that crazy?
I'm like, there is not.
Yeah.
I understand the form letter. That's fine. There is not careful consideration here. Like that. Let's just not say that.
My favorite is when they email you and they're like, "Oh, we have a large thing of applications, so this is why I'm writing to you personally." And it's like, I've gotten that email from you 3 times. I don't think this is a personal email.
Yeah, they sit on a throne of lies, or a throne of email bots. So I'm shifting to trying to network, and everything I've heard is somebody, and then a job opens up, and they know a guy, and you get hired. So I have the good fortune that many of my former students are in the tech world,
Nice.
and so it's hard for me to build those cold conversations and just reach out with people and set up, like a stranger conversation. But I'm shifting from assaulting the job world with my applications to just trying to build connections, and to connect with people and see how that goes. Because I'm not hopeful in being hired without having a conversation with somebody. And I feel like when I'm 1 out of 1,000, to have a conversation with someone when I'm 1 out of 1,000 might take a divine appointment.
Totally.
Oh man.
I want to touch on our podcast title and
Bring it full circle.
bring it full circle, baby, and talk about imposter syndrome. And have you had it? What have you done to deal with it? And how are you? Yeah, I guess what are you? What have you done to deal with it is the same thing as the next question of what can you tell other people and encourage them in their own imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Yes, to experiencing the imposter syndrome. And I think where it gets the worst is when I'm not able to solve an algorithm on LeetCode, either a medium or a hard one.
Oh my gosh.
And I get a
hate
rejection
LeetCode.
letter on the same day. My self-talk is I'm so dumb. Like that's what's going on in me is I am too. That's the voice right before I even got into this. I'm too stupid to do this, and I don't like feeling stupid. So then I get mad, and kind of get woe is me. I'm friends with a software developer who's starting his own business, and I told him that Fridays tend to be down days. Like for whatever reason, I can't solve algorithms on Fridays very well, and rejection letters come on Fridays. And he reached out to me this Friday. He's like, "Hey, do we need to get together for lunch today?" And it was a little late to make it happen in the day, but. He's
that's nice.
Yeah, he's committed to reaching out to me on Fridays.
Yeah,
so
we need like a Friday therapy group session or something.
we do.
We all like
Yes.
gather together and just commiserate.
Yeah, and maybe even instead of just sitting in our own misery and stewing in our own funk, do something productive together. Whether we build a project or
There you go.
solve an algo or something like that, right? Where we don't have to be alone in the misery. So to fight that, part of it is I get outside and I go for a walk and I breathe deeply. There's something powerful about paying attention to what is going on in the world in terms of nature that is, I believe, restorative to our soul. And so I take a walk and I try to pay attention to what the trees are doing. What are the birds doing? We have the luxury. We've got a green belt really close to our house, blocks away. So I could walk for a couple miles next to a creek and a pond, and sometimes you see foxes and lots of birds and people walking their dogs. I love dogs. So getting some fresh air and just stepping away from it all is really, really helpful. And then there's a quote that I like to remember that says, remember to remember. And when I look back at my bootcamp experience, I learned a lot, and I was able to accomplish some really amazing things. The app that I made for my school is really amazing. They're using it without me. It's running on its own. I had to tweak some things so that it would work under someone else's account instead of mine. But it's running perfectly. So when I remember to remember what I've accomplished and get some fresh air, there's something about it's gonna be okay. I'm not stupid. I'm not sure if you guys have you heard of Scott the painter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
He's in my house. Well, not literally, but like his paint.
Yeah.
You know. What I'm saying.
Yeah. He was in town a couple weeks ago, and my wife and I went to go see him. And he's going through various self-talk that we shut ourselves down with, and one of them that really resonates with me is I suck and I'm ugly, and that's the imposter syndrome that really gets to me, because the truth of the matter is I don't suck. And then there's this whole thing of, well, now you're being arrogant and stuck on yourself. And
you're not ugly.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Please have me back. This is the best. This is the best place I've been in a long time. And I think, so yeah, going for a walk, remember to remember. And the third would be really having community and being around other people. Simply being around other people is uplifting. Our Discord channel that we have going on, being a part of a project with this game project that we're a part of, and just being around others instead of isolating myself really helps me break out of that funk. Even though I still have this algorithm going since Friday that I haven't figured out yet, and it's kind of haunting me in my sleep. But,
I hate
linked
that.
lists. Yeah.
I hate when the lead code thing says, "Oh, this is an easy one. It'll take 15 minutes," and there I am 2 hours later, like.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, or a
I don't
medium
know.
one.
I think it's right.
You just go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I think it sounds so simple and so maybe like it doesn't even relate to coding imposter syndrome of just going out and taking a walk. What you're saying, but what I think you're saying is actually so wise, because I think I don't know if you guys experienced this, but this for me is actually the longest, even though it's only been a month and a half. I've always had like job to job to job, really. Besides when I was like 19, deciding if I want a job or school, whatever. And so this is as long as I've been, and so that anxiety kicks over, and it's just constantly on my mind, either job searching, or hey, I should be working on a project for my resume, or hey, I should be looking for freelance stuff, or I should go be solving algos. And it's just like, it's so hard to get away from that, especially when it's on your computer. Like this job is 100%, you have to be glued to your screen. And so it's easy to just sit inside all day, kind of shut yourself in a room and forget about the outside world. And then when you do that, I think you start to think the world is just you, because that's what it feels like. You're just, this is all I got. It's this room. It's me. And so I think just getting out and about and remembering the world is much bigger than yourself. And, your problem isn't as bad as it could be, right? I think that's a huge thing that's hard to do.
Totally. I'd agree with that. I mean, I have black walls and a dark green wall behind me, and then I black out all my windows. So when I'm extra depressed, I turn off the lights and I just sit there and I put my headphones on and I'm like, sad music, take me over,
And you have a black dog. So.
And I have a black dog. It's just the Rolling Stones. Anyway, I want it painted black.
Yeah, I got it.
Is that the Rolling Stones?
Joel, you're from the 80s, right? Which one is it?
Yeah, but I'm a metalcore guy. I don't know classic rock very well.
Okay.
I didn't even get into that.
I need the growly
Metal,
screamo
okay.
music to calm my soul. So I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, I gotta look it up because now I'm
pretty sure you're right. I want to paint it black. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it said in my Guitar Hero 3.
There you go. You remember them. Anyway, but yeah, it's that total, like, sometimes I get outside and I'm like, man, this is nice out here. I forgot about the world. Like, it's just that total, like, we do tend to hold ourselves up, and we do tend to be obsessed with it. And I feel like a lot of programmers and software engineers, they're all problem solvers, and they're driven by problems, right? Like, Joel, you had that issue with study hall, and so you created something to fix that issue, right? Like, for me, one of the biggest draws to be a coder was problems. Like, if there's an issue, I have to fix it. I can't sleep until I at least know what I'm going to do, or it's totally solved and it's done. Otherwise, I'm up all night, I'm stressing, and it could be something super simple, like the faucet's leaking, and it's just like a drip. It drives me crazy because it's not working right, you know? And so when you have an algo that you can't figure out or something, and it's haunting you for 3 days, and it's that total, like, it needs to be done, I can't leave. And I think, yeah, what you were saying of going outside is so good and wise. Like what Luke was saying about it. It was just like, you do need to go outside and take a deep breath, you know, sit on a bench, watch the water, watch some dogs walking by. Like you need that time alone to go, I am smart and I am not ugly.
And darn it, people like me.
And people like me.
We need some, like, positive motivation flashcards or T-shirts or something.
You should make an app that, like, every hour or something is just like a nice little, like, you are worthy, you are good, you are
gotta
smart.
Be something like that already. You would think
I'm sure there is. It's probably like in the Calm app or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I needed to go to alert when I'm not on my computer in that moment, though, because I'll be like, you lie!
You just chuck the phone at the wall or something.
Oh man, maybe it monitors your heart rate so it knows when you're ready for a kind word or not. I don't know.
Gosh.
Your blood pressure.
I'm gonna be up all night trying to solve this problem of this app now, Skylar. Thanks a lot.
There you go.
There's something to it, though, of how hard it is to pull away from a problem when it's not solved, to turn and walk away and to, like,
Yep.
It's almost like when you get into the thick of it, and I find this in coding a lot when I can't find whatever I'm trying to find or do what I'm trying to do. It's like walking in mud. And the energy it takes to get out of that mud without losing your shoes is really hard. And that's what it's like for me to pull myself away from a problem that's not solved, even though I'm too tired to really do anything else. I can't keep slogging through the mud. I'm too tired. I just need to get out. And that's hard for me to pry myself away. It's muddy, messy.
For me, it's more like a mosquito bite. It's like, yeah, I can ignore it for maybe an hour or two, but as soon as I start thinking about it again, like, I have to itch it. Like, I can't stop. It's just, it's stuck in my brain. Dang it. Oh man. Well, Joel, it's been great having you on. I know we've been on here for a while and I want to respect your time, so I just love to take a few minutes to wrap up here. Any other things that you've been thinking about? Anything that you feel like people who are either starting up coding or just graduated or just jumping in? Anything else that came to mind that you wanted to make sure you shared today?
Good question. I'm super grateful for you guys' willingness to have this conversation and have me on. I'm super excited for your podcast and how it will be able to help a lot of people in a pretty unique range in the coding experience. And so I'm super grateful for that. And I just want to highlight the importance of, yes, we're coding, but people are important. So, like, Luke, you're super good at gathering people in our boot camp and reaching out to people. And I sense you as being a gatherer. And as I look at that, people in relationships are really important, even though maybe a lot of people going into coding might be introverted or want to be a lone sailor or whatever. But we still need community in light of that. And so that's I think the big thing for me. I need to keep doing the work that I do. I need to keep studying algorithms. I need to keep building projects, thinking of where there's a need and a problem I can solve, and then practice solving that problem. Like, that's just part of the routine now. And and people. I gotta connect with people and engage in that community and not become a recluse hermit. I think that's the big thing to hold on to for me right now.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I think it's so easy when you're just like, we have coding problems. Like this is a job hunt problem, right? And it's so easy to just like think about how to solve it. And it's always, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? And not, hey, I have these other people around me that I can bounce ideas off of or use as resources or talk to. And I don't know, even as you said, like I'm good at gathering people, but even post-graduation, I've noticed it's a lot easier. Just, I need to do my own thing, so I don't have time for you guys. And that's such a trap to fall into. So I appreciate you pointing that out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I create a future that is so uncertain and scary. Like, what if I don't have a job in November? What is that going to look like? And the truth of the matter is I'm provided for right now. Like I had the good fortune of my last paycheck was August 30th. And so like I've had months to work up to this. And as of right now, I'm provided for. So instead of catastrophizing the future, if I can really stay focused on what I need to do, right, I'm planning for the future, right? I want to get a job. I want to be good enough in someone else's eyes. Not just my own, right? Because if I'm good enough in someone else's eyes, they'll hire me. And so, but to not live in 2 months from now, it's not November, right? Like where we are, I'm provided for right now. And so I'm grateful for that, and then trying to stay right now because who knows about tomorrow.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, appreciate your time. And speaking of talking with others, I know you said you don't like cold messages, but if anyone wants to connect with you, I'm sure most people listening already probably have seen you in the Discord, unless we start getting some other viewers outside of the Discord. But,
there we go, baby.
anywhere people can connect with you, you'd want to point out?
Yeah, you could search for me on LinkedIn and GitHub. I don't do much other social media. Too much comparison games for me. So I'm not real present on social media. But I've got a lot of connections on LinkedIn. Joel Jacobson, SON, not SEN. It's a significant difference. Swedish versus Norwegian, all this stuff.
We'll drop it in the description too.
Yep, and then JEJ Code is my GitHub username where I post most of the projects I'm working on. So those are two good ways to reach out. And I'd love to hear from people and have conversations as we can.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jacob.
Cool.
Jacob. Thanks, Joel. Joel,
son of Jacob, also called Joel.
I hadn't messed up anything this whole episode.
You're so good till the very end.
Yeah. We'll just cut the outro. Outro 2. Thanks, Joel, for coming on, being a first guest. We were scared. You were scared. We're all scared, but we made it through. We don't have imposter syndrome about this episode anymore, hopefully. Maybe when we start editing it, we will. But thank you guys for listening. Take care. Feel free to follow along in the links below, either Joel or the other stuff that Coding Imposters got going on. And as we've talked a lot about in this episode, if you're feeling lost, alone in the coding world, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get you connected. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode, even though we don't have everything figured out clearly. Thank you just following along in our journey. Hopefully it's helpful to hear about how we're feeling and that you can relate to it, feel like you're not alone, and hopefully the ways that we share how we're all dealing with this imposter syndrome will give us new ideas and things to try out to deal with this feeling and this struggle that we are in on this coding grind. So thank you guys for tuning in. Please feel free to reach out to us. All the contact links will be in the description below, whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, and feel free also to follow us on TikTok for certain clips and extra fun coding memes and stuff that we do. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode.